Hi, this is Scott with Learn to Stop Hunger. Today we're going to take a look at how to use the meter control with HTML5. The meter control, at least in my mind, seems somewhat similar to the progress bar control. However, I believe that it's meant to be used for showing a value such as maybe a speedometer value from a minimum to a maximum. I'm just going to show you a simple example here of how you can use it. I've already got Visual Studio Express 2012 for web opened up, and I'm going to go to File, New Project. I'm going to do an ASP.NET empty web application and call it Meter Example. I'm going to click OK. And actually I've already got one called that, so we'll go with Meter Example 2. Alright, now I am going to add an HTML page, which I will call index.html, and I'm going to add a folder called scripts, and I'm going to put my JavaScript files in there. Right off the bat, I want to add a new JavaScript file called index.js, and then I want to come up here and right click on my project and do manage NuGet packages. I'm going to make use of jQuery, so I want to add that to my project. When you do that, make sure you go in here and click under Online, go to All, and by default it should actually come back with jQuery. If for some reason it doesn't, you can type it in the search box here. I'm going to click on jQuery and click Install, and it's going to go through installing that package to my project. You can see now I've got several jQuery files here. I'm going to drag my one jQuery file into my index.js, adding a reference, and that's just for autocomplete purposes. Then back on index.html, I want to first add a reference to jQuery because index.js is going to rely on that, and then add a reference to index.js. I'm going to put a title on my HTML page, which is just simply going to be meter example. And my styles, actually I'm going to just do those inline, but typically you would want to create a separate CSS style sheet file that you would put all those styles in. So inside my body, the first thing I'm going to do is add a paragraph that explains the example, saying press the buttons to control the meter. And after that, I'm going to add two divs. First one, I'm going to put a bottom margin of 10 pixels just to separate it from the second div. And this div is, that first div is going to hold the meter control and some spans with text describing the meter control value. And then my second div is going to hold some buttons. I'll go ahead and add the buttons right now. Basically the buttons will increase and decrease the meter values. I'm going to treat this kind of like a speedometer and call them accelerate and decelerate. I'm going to put a simple style on this with a right hand margin of 10 pixels to separate the buttons out a little bit. And I got an extra quote there. This will be my button text. And my second button is going to be for decreasing the value. I'm going to call that decelerate. And actually I don't need to put a style on that. Now inside my first div, I'm going to go ahead and add a label to describe the meter. I'm going to associate it with the my meter control, which is what we're going to add next, and the text is going to be speed. Like I said, this is going to be I guess a crude speedometer here. The ID for our meter is my meter. The tag is actually called meter. That's the new meter tag for HTML5. We're going to set an initial value of 0. And with meter, you can also set a minimum and a maximum value. I'm going to go with a min of 0 and a max of 100. And you can put some text inside the meter tag for those people who have browsers that do not support the tag. Internet Explorer, as of the creation of this video, does not support the meter tag. So that's a bit of a bummer, because I believe there's still a lot of people out there who are using Internet Explorer. Next thing I'm going to do is have a label there that shows the value of the meter, actually a span with an ID of speed, and then next to that I'm just going to have a span with some static text, miles per hour. I'm going to go ahead and save and do some work with my JavaScript here. I'm going to add a document ready function, so when the document is finished loading, this is going to be called. Pass document ready an anonymous function. And all of our work is going to be done inside here. I'm going to add an event handler for the accelerate button when you click it. So there's my jQuery selector, which picks the element that has an ID of accelerate, and I'm going to add an event handler for the click event. And I'm going to pass it an anonymous function that takes an event parameter. And I'm going to do something similar for the decelerate button. I'm going to do a selector that looks for an ID of decelerate. We'll use on to add an event handler for the click event. And we're going to have another anonymous function that takes an event as a parameter. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab our meter using jQuery. You're going to look for the item with an ID of my meter. And then we're going to get the current speed by looking at the value of meter. After that, we are going to increment our meter value only if the speed is less than 100, since 100 is our max. Here we're going to set it to the current speed, the current value plus 10. And at the same time, we are going to set our speed span text to show what the value is. HTML sets the inner HTML there of that span. And that's all there is to that. I'm going to copy this and paste it down and decelerate, because we're going to do something very similar here, except we're going to look for, check if the value is greater than 0, and if it is, then we will decrease the value by 10. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to go ahead and launch Chrome here to take a look at this. You can see here's my meter. This is just how Chrome renders that meter, very similar to a progress bar. Here's my text and showing the value, and then here are my buttons. So I'm going to accelerate. You see the label keeps increasing there up until 100, and then it stops. And then I can decelerate, and that'll decrease the value and decrease this meter reading as well. So that's pretty much all there is to meter. I will also show you here. Let's go ahead and try to launch this in Internet Explorer. I'm going to show you what happens here. You can see it actually does display that text. Your browser does not support the meter tag. So at this time, at least the version of IE that I am running does not support this tag. But there are several other browsers that do, so maybe you'll consider using it. Maybe you'll have another option in case their browser does not support the meter tag. So that's all that I have for this video, and hopefully that's been useful to you so that you can start using the HTML5 meter tag.